All right. Hey, everyone. I should have started recording when I gave the spiel earlier, but anyway, welcome to our weekly SIP meeting. Um, what sounds like the name of a SIP author's, oh, SIPcation. Anyway, okay. Everyone, thanks for joining us, especially in the middle of summer when I know that everyone is probably either on or looking forward to a vacation. As I mentioned earlier before we started recording, last week's call was pretty substantive. We spent the majority of the time talking about the 2.1 upgrade. So just for everyone's information on this call, that recording will go out soon. We also have an FAQ that we'll probably share around. There's currently a blog that's already out that talks a lot about the upgrade. So if you're curious to read more about it now, we can share that link around in the chat in a second. So this week's call is going to be a pretty quick one. We're going to just do a round of updates on SIP activity, and Hiro is going to lead us through that. So Hiro, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see that.
Oh,
right, we'll
cool.
take it away.
So, yeah, welcome to 15th of July, SIP community call. Yeah, so just go over quickly. So just for those who haven't been here before, just to let you know what this code is about. So just to give a general update on SIP and to attract people too. And you can share your ideas on SIP if you want. At the end, every session there's an open discussion near the end or in the middle of it. So yeah, welcome to share your ideas, give updates, and it's a place to collaborate and feedback or comments. So yeah, so just a quick update. I'm seeing SIP 13 still at accepted stage, but the activation criteria being submitted. And SIP 16, I think it's just been activation in progress. I think SIP 18, interestingly, I think Hiro Web Wallet merged SIP 18, so that we could see interesting stuff coming out of Hiro Wallet. And SIP 19 also in activation in progress stage. So yeah, and then I think interesting stuff for me is the derivation part that's currently on Stacks forum, and the minor centralization topic. I think these two topics are very interesting and potentially very impactful. And definitely the one that's very impactful is the minor centralization. So if people have any comments or ideas, want to chime in, please feel free. So many things are in draft stage. I noticed one that I think could be quite interesting is the Taproot. And I've reached out to Rena, so we should have Rena soon in the next few weeks, hopefully next week, to get so she can present her draft SIP to us, to the community. So stay tuned on that. Some early stage discussion, particularly interesting one for me, and hopefully for the rest of us, is the standardizing the Bitcoin derivation path. And it has very interesting implications in terms of like use cases could be sending NFT to a Bitcoin person, and how does that person own it and claim it and use it. And also, I think it has implication on the Bitcoin DAOs and sending tokens as well. So I know many people have commented on that thread, like Jude and Hank. So very curious to see what can come out of it. And if people have any comments on that, please feel free on the open discussion. And also, I hope in the next few weeks, when it's ready, we can get everybody on that thread together and have a chat. And it also informs the whole community about that SIP. So yeah, for anyone who potentially haven't been here before, last week we had a very important chat about Stacks 2.1. So just to point people to the right direction, you can track those stuff on GitHub, and there's a blog about it, and more information will be released in the future. So things I'll be working on in the near future. So I think we talked about inviting the right people to the right discussion for this particular call. So if it's about NFT stuff, things that can impact NFT stuff like the derivation path, we would invite the marketplace people, for example, the wallet people, so that we can keep this meeting productive and effective for the people who join. And so I think that's something we can fine tune this meeting, how we use this meeting, and who we get, what type of people we get for that particular topic for that week. And the next things, I'll be inviting Rena to talk about her SIP, and also derivation path team, talk about their discussion. And we'll be integrating a SIP channel in Stacks Discord as well soon, so that people can have a more casual way to discuss things. And we're currently seeing that in Bitcoin DAO, in Megapwn's DAO, and people are chatting there and proposing stuff in Megapwn, like casually. And it's like from casual discussion and turns into like a proposal. So it's quite interesting to see for anybody who's interested. There's a channel in Megapwn. Yeah, so I think hopefully we can have a channel too for people the community member to access in Stacks Discord. And I think some labeling issue came up by Jason. So maybe Jason want to talk about it. But yeah, essentially, like, we want better labeling so people can discover each issue by topic easier. I think it's a nice suggestion. And a little bit more template questions for perhaps the SIP discussion, for like brainstorm ideas on Stacks forum and the SIP channel. I think that can help people formulate their idea better, so that later on people can other people can chime in a better productive fashion. And also for the SIP presentation, we'll have some template questions for the SIP presenter to have a think before presenting as well, so that we have a more productive format for the SIP call. And I'll be inputting into Ecosystem DAO. And for those who don't know what Ecosystem DAO is, it's a portal, it's a protocol that can help manage a DAO, but it's better than executor DAO, has more functionalities and stuff. So I'll be leveraging that to improve the SIP process and the SIP voting. So yeah, that's an update for this week. So yeah, the floor is open for anybody to comment.
Thanks for that update, Hero. Really thorough. Are there any questions from folks? Any other topics that we could possibly discuss today, or that you want to put on the table for upcoming calls? Okay, I see a comment from Deployer in the chat that says having a SIP channel on Discord would help not so technical people find more information more easily about SIPs in progress and other related info. It would also be helpful for quick technical questions. Yeah, I agree. I think a SIP channel would be a great start for anybody who's just, basically getting started with the SIP process. We've talked a little bit about that, building an integration to the forum for longer form discussion and basically giving people a lot of spaces for discussion and ideation before getting to the actual draft stage, which does require using GitHub and quite a bit more work. But at that stage, we should also have mentors to help folks with their ideas as well.
Yeah, I think the SIP channel, I think like many of these stuff are work in progress, and we're trialing and testing, and only through by using, because we can think of like the perfect plan and perfect design, but like when things are in practice, that's how I think for many things in general, when things are put into practice, things never turn out the way you think it is. So the best way for me to come up with the best way of forming through that the funneling process from an idea to draft sift to getting reviewed, to getting accepted. I think only by doing it and implementing, trialing these, for example, a SIP channel and maybe some voting process, I think that's the only way to really get it right. And yeah, I think putting things to practice and test it. I do have a question for Ju. Well, it's more like I'm seeing that the derivation path discussion talked about a lot. I wonder whether you can share like a brief overview of what that discussion is, on the top level is about. And is there something like we should perhaps create some design goals first? Or I don't know. Yeah, just wondering what your thoughts are on that topic.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably the best step right there. I think that the conversation has kind of gotten a bit meandering of like solutionizing without really knowing what exactly the problem is. One helpful pedagogical thing we could do in the future is like, maybe after a conversation has gotten, more than X posts long, we should make sure that everyone's on the same page on what exactly is the problem we're trying to solve and how will we know when we have solved it. Because I think like a lot of the conversation has been back and forth about like ambiguities relating to these two things. The problem as I understand it right now, and I'm hoping for pushback or correction or clarification here, is that if you're a user and you're not a Stacks user, but you use Bitcoin, what's the easiest way for someone to give you a Stacks asset like an NFT or some fungible token or even some Stacks, knowing just your Bitcoin address, such that you can later turn around and use that asset, like spend it, transfer it, do something on chain with it, but knowing that you don't have a Stacks address right now. There's a few ways you can do this, like the most straightforward way and the most trivial way from a technical execution standpoint, but not from the business development standpoint, would be like, oh, okay, just use the same derivation path for Bitcoin as you use for Stacks, and voila, your Stacks address and your Bitcoin address are the same data. That doesn't really work for a whole host of reasons, because one of them is like it's a huge security risk to try to do that in wallets, to try to use the same derivation path for different blockchains, because then a wallet on one blockchain could just sign transactions that spend tokens on another blockchain. Another way you can figure this, and also there's the whole question of like how do you support legacy addresses and a bunch of compatibility questions relating to that. The other question, what Ken was proposing is, well, hey, what if we use the SegWit derivation path that we use for Bitcoin, but because in order to save some space and make transactions cheaper, so that if people do have to send a transaction via Bitcoin, they can do so for less Satoshis than they would have had to otherwise. You can do that if you're willing to jump through a few other hoops, because the SegWit address and the Stacks does not decode directly to a Stacks address. You need to know the public key in order to do that, but that's certainly a solvable problem. So yeah, so the question, this sounds like it's solvable on the surface. Given a Bitcoin address, can you send an asset to can you calculate the corresponding stacks address given the Bitcoin address? So the stacks user can send an asset to that Bitcoin holder so that when that Bitcoin holder later onboards into a stacks wallet, they have it available to them. I think that's doable. The questions I think at this point that remain are what's the least painful way to make that happen, given that you can't really use the same derivation path for multiple blockchains, and that you have to also play ball with the hardware wallet vendors.
Yeah, thank you. So sounds like a big thing to solve.
To be clear, like this is actually a good reminder that there's no need to have a SIP for this just yet. Like we're still very much like trying to figure out the set of possible solutions to this problem. And then, you know, once there's some developer traction and, you know, people are coalescing around the same way of solving this problem, then we can write the SIP. Like the SIP is just there to like document after the fact, like here's the standard way that we've tried out in practice of how to solve this particular problem. Trying to do this SIP right now, I think it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. We should definitely be going around and experimenting with different ways of solving this problem.
Yeah. Do you think it will require a SIP at the end, or could it be done without a SIP?
I mean, it doesn't need to be like a consensus track SIP. It could just be like the same kind of SIP that we do for trait definitions. It's just the standard way of doing things. There's like a happy medium as to when to do a SIP. You do it too early and you find yourself boxed in to design decisions you didn't intend to make because, you know, you just didn't understand the problem fully. But if you do it too late, then you have this problem of having to herd a bunch of cats. You have like a bunch of people doing everything slightly differently, and then you have to get them all to agree somehow. That's kind of why like the activation section of SIPs tends to require there to be a few implementations of the SIP itself, but not so many that it's intractable. Just to make sure that, you know, you've had the benefit of experimentation, but you didn't have to have so many implementations that you risk making incompatible ones, simply because, you know, different implementers had different ideas of what to do, given the ambiguity a lack of a SIP would create.
Yeah. What I personally find it fascinating about this particular discussion is how potentially impactful that it could be, because then we can potentially leverage it to onboard more. Like there's a lot of Bitcoin addresses. So like if we're able to unlock that side of Bitcoin addresses, it's potentially an onboarding opportunity for so many new customers or new people. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
That's true. That actually gives me an idea for a third alternative that I hadn't written in the forum post, but could be a way to deal with this. If it's the case that you send a NFT, let's say, to a Bitcoin address, it could be doable that in order to claim that NFT on the Stacks chain, you just have to submit a proof that that transaction on Bitcoin existed and that you are the owner of that address. There could be a self-service interface in the NFT smart contract that lets you do that, and that's how your NFT materializes to a Stacks address. Because then at that point, it doesn't really matter what that Stacks address is. It doesn't have to be related to the Bitcoin address at all, because all that needs to be done in this self-service interface is the TX sender has to prove to the smart contract that they are the owner of that Bitcoin address, and therefore the smart contract should send that NFT to a given Stacks address that they supply in the argument list.
Can you just prove like you have the hash of that thing? I don't know.
I mean, there's two things you got to show. You got to show that Bitcoin transaction, like suppose that I'm the guy who suppose I'm sending you, Hero, an NFT. There's a Bitcoin transaction now that shows that, like as part of the airdrop, I send a Bitcoin transaction to your Bitcoin address with, let's say it has an op return that gives some metadata about how the NFT should be minted. And let's say you're the second output on that transaction. Your address is the second output. So that transaction exists now. Then later on, if you wanted to go and claim that NFT, you would go to the smart contract And you would make a contract call into that smart contract that contains two things. First, it would contain a Merkle proof that this particular transaction exists on the Bitcoin chain, which you can do because the Stacks blockchain has the list of block header hashes natively available in Clarity. And from that, you can authenticate any Bitcoin transaction to prove that it exists on chain. The second thing you can do is you could supply a signature over on a given message string that the smart contract might supply, such that the smart contract could recover your public key. And in Stacks 2.1, it could then convert that public key into an address and verify that that address has the same 20 byte hash 160 of the Bitcoin address in the transaction authenticated. That would indicate to the smart contract that the signer of that message, i.e. TX sender in this case, you would verify it's TX sender, then you verify that the signer is the owner of that address. Because then once you've done that, then the smart contract knows that the transaction sender is the intended recipient of that NFT, and the smart contract can then look at the op return output in that transaction, then decode it, and then figure out how exactly to go about manifesting that NFT to you, TX sender.
Cool. So do you know like when you guys, like whenever you guys think like it's ready to get everybody on the call, or when do you think that is right timing?
I'm not the right person to ask. I think Ken's the right person to ask for that.
Okay, I'll contact Ken. And if I can help you guys get in the room and hash it out, I think I can help on that front. But yeah, thank you so much for the explanation. So yeah, anybody else got any topics to discuss? Or want to share like happy stuff? I don't know, important stuff you've been doing?
I'm going to assume that means everybody is looking forward to their weekend and really loves SIPs, because otherwise you wouldn't be so excited to join us on a Friday. Anyway, we can give you all back 25 minutes or 35 minutes. Thank you for joining, and we'll keep you posted. Oh, also, so from this meeting onward, or at least from next week's meeting onward, we'll try to post the minutes or the notes from each meeting. So if you just want to, know what was discussed in the meeting at a glance, that should start becoming available on the forum. Hero also posts the agenda for every week's meeting on GitHub, if you want to share some of those links around Hero. But yeah, if you've got suggestions for next week's meeting, if there's anything else that you'd want to talk about, please let us know. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Before we jump off,
Yeah.
Is this call meant to discuss some ideas for SIPs as well?
Yeah, we do have, we leave space for that, Jesse. So we try to make sure that we go through all the SIP updates every week, just to keep everyone aligned. But there's usually time left over to discuss ideas in meetings, or not meetings, ideas and projects. And
I want to reclaim my time then. So, all right, turn the camera on here. I know Jude and I have spoken about this before, and he's explained why it's incredibly challenging to do it today. But I just want to gauge if there's any interest in possibly expanding the RPC endpoints. So today, the RPC endpoints are kind of limited in what data you can get back. I would absolutely think it's a great idea if we could use RPC to get things like transaction data out of the blockchain directly. Any thoughts around that?
Do you have like a list of endpoints and what your expected behaviors for those endpoints would be?
I mean, I don't want to say the exact same ones as the API, because API is very rich data and it's awesome. But just generic stuff like block details, confirm block details, confirm transaction details, things like that.
You probably don't need a SIP for that. You
Okay.
can just file like a feature request issue on the Stacks blockchain repo.
Okay.
I will say specificity in like what you're looking for out of RPC endpoints dramatically increases the probability of implementation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of endpoints that I think would be useful, in a broad sense. It's just I've heard from people in the community, integration partners, et cetera, that they would like to see this for various reasons. And I know I spoke with Jude about this a while back. I understand the challenge of just, adding RPC endpoints for everything. But I think at least a limited set of basic data of the blockchain would be very useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that like the RPC endpoints currently on the node don't expose probably as much information as they should or can. But yeah, just like trying to be as specific as possible in the feature request helps a lot. Because
so you said, so in this feature request, you want to be as specific as possible for which endpoints and what details the endpoint should have?
Yeah, like a perfect feature request would actually look like a JSON schema of the response and the request.
Okay, I can do that.
Cool.
I ask from the perspective of the end user, what benefit or what would that do to unlock the features for apps, therefore benefit the end user? What could I see the difference in?
Well, for the application specifically, not much. I wouldn't expect any decentralized app to use this because RPC endpoints are slow on purpose. However, if someone doesn't want to run an API or is prevented for whatever reason, they can still get most of the data the API would expose out of the RPC endpoint.
So it's more about the nodes and the ease of operating a node.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so that could help.
Yeah, it's not meant to replace the API at all. It's just, it provides a way for people to get a little more information out of the blockchain.
It's like an analytic.
An example would be if a miner is running the Stacks blockchain. They don't really have a way to see what transactions are in that blockchain or the blocks very easily unless they also run an API against a miner, which I've never heard of anyone doing.
Yeah, cool. Sounds like more like analytics for the miners.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Aaron. I'll work on that issue and file it.
I was gone for a second there, but Jesse, would you be open to putting some notes together on that on the forum to start discussion? No, it sounds like you're still scoping it, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put that into my notes here.
Cool. And thank you for using that time. Actually, that's just a really cool how this meeting can be a helpful and friendly place for anyone to share ideas. And I think it's also helpful because, like, as Jude was saying, not everything has to be a SIP, and you might not be sure whether something is like SIP worthy or not until you actually talk to other folks in the community. And that's our goal with this meeting, beyond just giving everyone updates. So please feel free to use this time for that and encourage all of your friends in the community to do the same. Okay, anything else? Hero, anything you want to cover?
No, just thanks for coming. Anybody, feel free to reach out for anything. If you want to join the CABs or SIP author or helper or editors or whatever. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, especially if you want to join a cab, let us know. Or be an editor. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Oh, Jesse, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, if you just keep giving me time, I'll keep coming up with stuff. This is more about process than anything else, but are there any plans to have like like a dashboard for the SIPs, or is everything going to be done in the GitHub issues directly, like when people vote on the SIPs and things like that? I'm thinking of oh boy, the executor DAO and something like that that could be used for
Yeah.
voting on SIPs eventually.
This actually came up last week when we discussed it briefly. I mean, you know, I guess we want to take the shortest path to a better tool for community members for voting. So if a dashboard is like a lightweight thing that some folks could take on, I think we'd be totally open to it. Aaron, I think you were the one who mentioned that like the way that we have done votes before, it's not like that's our dream way of doing it. It's just the easiest way. But the more we engage in the SIPs process and try to improve it, the more I think we want to lean towards something that's like extremely community friendly. And right now, I think it's still pretty complex.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking of, oh boy, I'm going to forget his name. I think Rick, he's working on Clarity Universe in Marvin. I know
Mike?
he showed, Mike,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they are developing a platform ecosystem DAO, which
Yeah.
currently they already have like a mock interface. So you can navigate the GitHub's proposals also, and you can have educational stuff about SIP, but also there's a page for voting. I don't think the interface is as sleek or as easy as the executor DAO, because I've tried the Stacker DAO for Megapon, and that interface is quite easy to use. So the interface for ecosystem DAO is not yet there. But I think that could
That's
be
just
a
UI elements though.
dashboard.
I think the idea is sound though. I think we should loop in Mike, see if there's any work he can transpose into the SIPs process here.
Yeah, so I'm already in touch with them, Marvin
Excellent.
and Mike. So they have a channel. Actually, I'll tag you if you just to show you where it is. But yeah, it's in Stacker. It's in Stack server. There's a channel called Clarity Lab. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just tag me in
people.
the discussion. I'd be happy to join in.
Cool.
I think something I'm not sure about yet is like I love that there is some work happening around improving the voting experience for end users. I assume like the big thing to figure out is like verification of voters or of their identity. So yeah, I mean, it's not something I have any ideas for yet, but that's probably the big thing to figure out ahead of that. Because after that, then it's just a matter of getting Mike and Marvin some design resources for that dashboard.
Yep.
Yeah. What I thought before was depending on the development progress, but I thought at the very, very worst, we can still do what we did last year voting wise. And they can run like a trial alongside that just to test it for the next year's voting. So they will have data to gather, they have user feedback. But actually we still base the voting process officially on last year's thing. If they can't get it in time for this round, and it's a safe way because we know how the last time went. But if they can get it ready for this time.
Okay. Well, we can move that discussion to Discord and just see where it goes.
All right. Pause for anything else? No? Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Talk to y'all later.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.